Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can enable sensitivity label apply or sensitivity label enablement for Microsoft 365 group from Entra ID, right? So we have options, we have setup and we have configurations that we can do from security as well as a purview portal in short, right? And the compliance portal as well. And from there, we would be able to create sensitivity label policy and we can publish it across, right? So once we publish that policy and attach it to the label, and that label is going to be applied across all the different workloads, right? So workloads includes SharePoint, Teams, Exchange, SharePoint as along with the OneDrives as well for the respective group of users, or if it is applied for the whole organization, that means it is going to apply for everyone across the organization, right? So those are the major workloads where the data is residing, data is moving, data is being created, deleted, updated, modified, and all of those are the operations that are happening on the data. And that is why we are or we wanted to protect the data on different levels, right? So depending on the data assets or data classification, whether data is confidential, data is internal, external, public, or it is very confidential or highly confidential, which we really don't want to let other people to see and maybe share or export and all other those actions, right? So those are the actions where we would put in place those sensitivity labels so that also we can enforce those label applying policy so that the user don't have option. Instead, they have to apply any respective label so that data is not moving out of the organization. And if it is moving, then they have to provide with either justifications or maybe they need to get the right set of approvals and all of that stuff. So it is totally depend on how we as an organization are going to plan that policy deployment, as well as how we wanted to treat each layer, each classified data, right? So classified data includes, as I said, internal, external, public, private, confidential, highly confidential. All those kind of are the different sensitivity labels that we can create with, and we really need to define what data is considered as a highly confidential, what data is really considered as a private, internal, public, external, right? So all those are the different labels and layers we can say on the data level, and that is something we need to identify and classify. And when we have large chunk of data or big data within the organization, be it stored across the SharePoint, OneDrives, or any other data sources, and we wanted to consolidate at one point at one center location, then it is going to be something like either migrate the data or we have to kind of do the other ways, like either integrate systems and move the data, and the primary location can be either SharePoint, OneDrives, and data can be classified and share it across, right? So those are the different options for that. I'm not going to talk more on that side, but majorly to the sensitivity labels and how we can enable that from Entra ID side and Entra ID context, and how those labels can be applied to each of those groups. So the group scope here is only for Microsoft 365 groups, because those are the collaboration groups which applies on Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, Planner, and all other major workloads, right? Where when we create M365 group, it also creates the other underlying resources in the backend, and all those resources are accessible to all those respective members who are member of those groups, right? Now we wanted to protect the data which is residing in those respective group and other integrated or connected services with that respective group, right? So as soon as we create a group, it has a group mailbox. As soon as we create a group, it has a SharePoint site created. Then it has also teams created, and then channels, and each channel has their respective SharePoint site created backend, right? Along with the planner and all other workloads as well, depending on the organization and licenses that they have, right? So now we wanted to protect the data which is residing in all of those workloads. So to protect that one, we need to make sure we have appropriate configurations set up there, right? And then once we have that one, that means we have to make sure the data is classified as well. So once we have classified data, then that data will move to the respective locations. Either we wanted to protect the highly confidential data in particular SharePoint site or particular location within respective SharePoint site, or maybe we just wanted to classify it, and basis on that we can either take the actions whether users should be able to share it across the organization, internally, externally, whether they can download it, whether they can share outside the organization, whether they can copy, print it. So all of those are the actions that we can either block it, or either we can allow it, or we can simply make sure only group of people have those permissions to do it, right? So that is something that can be done from the compliance side by creating a sensitivity label and policies to it. But that is why, or this method or this area which I'm telling, or which I'm talking about, is part of the sensitivity label enablement for the groups, right? So let's go ahead and I'll show you what I'm talking about and what we can enable and how we can do that. So let me share my screen quickly here, and we'll go ahead and talk more on it. All right. So I have shared my screen here, and you can see that on the screen, you can see that this is the Entra portal snap, where you can see group type is Microsoft 365, and there is option which is sensitivity label, right? So this option does not come automatically. We need to enable it, and I'm going to show you all those steps how we can enable it. And then those, once we enable it, it is going to be synchronized between compliance portal, which is Microsoft Purview these days, right? And then sync with Entra ID, and all those sensitivity labels will show up here within Entra portal, and from here we can simply enable it or assign to it, right? So there are other methods to assign that respective label. Either it could be in bulk, right, by using PowerShell or MS Graph PowerShell or any other bulk actions or perform actions, right? So that's other way. And to do that, I'm here on the Entra portal, let's say, and if I go back to the group section, and if I select the Microsoft 365 group, and currently we don't see that option here. Instead, we can see this little information here, which says that use group sensitivity labels for in Entra ID to classify and protect 365 groups. So this is just a label, but, and I'm going to show you how we can bring that option here by running few PowerShell scripts, right? Or steps, I would say, and those would be enabled, right? So I have logged into Entra or Graph PowerShell, uh, and then I have also logged into Exchange PowerShell, so that there are certain steps that we need to take, right? So certain steps includes, I'll directly jump onto the uh, portal, not portal exactly, but there are a few steps. So here you can see these are the commandlets which can be used to install Graph PowerShell. And then we need to connect to this command to the Graph PowerShell, right? And then this permission is needed at least, which is on directory.readwrite.all. That means we need whole directory level read write permissions. And then this is the command which is going to check whether enable of sensitivity label is allowed on the Entra portal. So now this is that command which says that get dash mg beta directory settings, where object then value name equals to enable MIS or MIP labels. And then it is going to pick that record here, and then it is going to show that value. So let's say hit enter. So once I enter it, it is already connected. That is why it has given the results. And you can see this value is set to true. And by default, this value remains false, right? So we need to make sure that this value is set to true, then only it is going to be allowed us to do that. Now I have enabled it to true before, and that is why you can see it set to true, right? And to reflect that change, it takes around 24 hours as per the Microsoft documentation, because it needs to sync between Entra ID and Purview portal, right? Because whatever the changes we have done, that change needs to be reflected and changed appropriately, and it should also make sure it has appropriate options or settings enabled, right? So that is why it is set to true, and it is going to show, or it is going to take some time to show up in Entra portal. Now let's go back to this. Here's the setting, or here's the command line, which says that when we wanted to make sure this is enabled, then this value should be true. Let's say I'll copy this quickly and I'll open it in one of the notepad, and you can see that, right? So I'll make you understand. So this is the parameter, then value, and under that, these are the parameters. These are the parameters and values for that, and this is the command which is going to update that parameter. Let's say update the mg beta directory setting ID. So it is going to pick up that ID, and then body parameter set to param. So this is picking up this parameter attributes, and then it is executing the whole script, right? So this is that script, right? And this is pretty straightforward, and it's kind of one-time activity. We really don't need to. And in case we wanted to check that whether it has executed successfully or not, it is the same command that I have executed here. You can see, right? And the same command is going to be executed, and so say this is the same command. It is just showing the same result here on the screen, right? And once it is done, right, then we can see the results as in it is going to, so this is the snap, right? And then we can go ahead and assign the label. So now once it is enabled, it is going to simply show this option here on the screen, and from here we can come back to the properties and assign that option to the respective group, right? So this is pretty straightforward. Also, there is another way or another requirement that we really need to make sure that is also enabled. What is that one? Which is about enabling the containerization for teams, groups, and SharePoint site. So that is from Exchange module, right? So there is a straightforward command which also allows us to set the sensitivity label from or on the respective workloads, be it SharePoint teams, right? Then groups or OneDrive, and there's one command. So this command, which is execute dash Azure AD label sync. So what this command does is, this is going to make the synchronization possible between Entra ID and the sensitivity labels that we are going to create, or we have created here in the Microsoft Purview portal. Here you can see I have two different labels, one is internal and one is public, right? So all of these labels would be synchronized from Purview to the Entra, and all those labels are going to show up for us in order to assign those to the respective groups. And that is why we have to enable that synchronization, otherwise it is not going to work. Now we are seeing that it is not showing up yet, because as I said, it takes up to 24 hours to synchronize that change and to pick up that change initially, and once it is synchronized, it should be available for us to go ahead and apply it, right? So this is what it is going to show. And also, while configuring this one, we need to select groups and sites so that it is going to apply to 365 groups and sites, and including everything across the major data workloads. Here you can see files, folders, then emails, and then meetings. and everything, right? So this is something which we can do from Purview portal, Purview site, definitely. But now this capability is also available from Entra ID, and it's pretty straightforward and a great way to do it for the organization, right? And from Exchange side, we need to connect to security and compliance portal to run or to execute this commandlet here, right? So I have used this commandlet here. I'll show you this one. And so this is that command. And by running this command, you can simply connect to the security and compliance portal, right? And once you are connected, you can go ahead and then execute this second command, this one. Just copy it and paste it. So once you execute it, it should be executed straightforward. And then I have already executed once. Now it is again executed one more time, and it is set to as appropriate, right? So that means the synchronization is up and running. We can check if we have get Azure AD label. Oh, seems there is no such command. I think we need to go ahead and look at this if there is such command available here. Get labels. Okay, so these are for labels. So what are the labels available for us? So we have three different labels. You can see internal, GDPR, Germany, and public. I have created these three labels before. And then seems there is no commandlet to get that status synchronized. And maybe there is just another option, but we need to see that one, and definitely that is going to be available. But this is pretty straightforward, and it is from Exchange side. As you can see, this is Exchange security and compliance portal, and from there we can connect and get it done, right? So yep, this is pretty straightforward, right? And once we have enabled, it is going to simply show up on the Entra portal for us to assign respective sensitivity label to those respective groups directly, right? So now it is not only the part of it is not only part of security side or compliance side, it can also be part of Entra. And from Entra side, we can run it by running PowerShell script or MS Graph script or even Graph APIs as well to execute and enable and apply that in bulk, right? So this way we can make sure all those respective labels or sensitivity labels are assigned to respective groups, and then the data is being appropriately handled there, right? So yeah, that is all for this video. I wanted to show you and talk about it. Definitely let me know your feedback on this, what you think about this, whether you have implemented this before, you have used it in any way. And I would be happy to answer any questions, any doubts, any clarification that you need. And yeah, that's all. Talk Watch about other videos around Microsoft 365, Team, SharePoint, Entra ID, Azure, and FinOps. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye for now.